Meghan Markle's legal team is reportedly exploring defamation options after The Simpsons delivered what many are calling the most savage celebrity takedown in television history.
And by the power vested in me, by you just now, I pronounce you king and trophy queen. In the name of the Henry, the Hank, and the Holy Harry, amen.
Oh! Sources close to the Duchess reveal she's absolutely furious, calling the animated parody character assassination disguised as comedy. But here's what's really got Hollywood talking. This wasn't just any ordinary roast. This was a mirror held up to a carefully constructed image that's been cracking for months.
We discussed this the other day on your excellent podcast, Recollections May Vary, but, almost quietly, Meghan, our friend Meghan, this week made the most astonishing announcement.
The episode featured a cartoon character bearing an unmistakable resemblance to Meghan, complete with vegan cupcakes, a practiced smile, and enough self-promotion to make seasoned Hollywood executives cringe. Within hours, the internet exploded. Memes flooded social media, reaction videos racked up millions of views, and think pieces dissected every animated detail. But while America laughed, Meghan wasn't even close to amused. What made the satirical strike so devastating wasn't its exaggeration, it was its accuracy.
The sort of sad, simpering sequel to that non-starter American Riviera Orchard. So what was it, for a year and a half or something? American Riviera Orchard, I'm going to sell you my jam and my honey, and it's going to be, here's a TV show. Oh, wait a minute, I can't call it American Riviera Orchard. Oh.
The Simpsons didn't create a fictional version of Meghan Markle. They simply animated the reality that industry insiders have been whispering about for years. The character's bland, polished cooking show was a direct hit at something far more damaging than any cartoon should be able to deliver. The animated cooking show wasn't random. It was a surgical strike aimed at Meghan's now-scrapped Netflix series, with Love, Meghan. This show was supposed to be her triumphant return to entertainment, blending California wellness culture with royal sophistication. Instead, it became a case study in how not to create television content.
She said, I might, what did she say? Most extraordinary, remarkable statement. She said, I'm stepping back to figure out what as ever could be.
Industry insiders described the show as stiff and soulless, with one Netflix executive reportedly saying it felt more like a TED Talk than comfort viewing. The series was meant to showcase Meghan's lifestyle expertise, but what emerged was an overproduced mess of social justice messaging wrapped in aesthetic perfection. The show never made it past pre-production, with Netflix quietly pulling the plug before a single episode could embarrass the platform. But the Netflix cancellation was just the beginning of a pattern that would define Meghan's media career. Instead of learning from this failure, she doubled down on the exact approach that had already proven disastrous.
When it comes, so the quote she actually said, first of all, I just want to say this Fast Company profile, while you read it and you can tell
Fast Company, let me explain. Fast Company is the magazine.
Her next venture would make the cooking show look like a masterpiece of restraint. Enter Confessions of a Female Founder, a podcast title that sounded like a PowerPoint presentation had gained consciousness and decided to torture listeners. Leaked clips revealed a recurring nightmare for anyone hoping to hear actual conversation. Guests who barely got to speak because every topic somehow became about Meghan's journey, her struggles, her victories, her truth. One producer who worked on the series didn't mince words. It felt like a motivational LinkedIn post that never ends. Another industry professional called it a mirror disguised as a microphone. The pattern was unmistakable. Every question to a guest became a launching pad for Meghan to share her own experiences, turning what should have been interviews into extended monologues about her personal brand. But this wasn't Meghan's first podcast disaster. The foundation for this failure had been laid years earlier with a deal so massive it made headlines around the world, only to collapse in spectacular fashion. Remember Archetypes? The podcast Meghan launched with Spotify through a $20 million deal that was supposed to revolutionize how we discuss female stereotypes. The project was hyped as groundbreaking, with Meghan positioned as the perfect host to tackle complex social issues with nuance and authenticity. What listeners got instead was an overproduced, carefully choreographed series that felt about as authentic as a campaign commercial. Each episode followed the same formula: serious topic introduction, carefully selected guests, and conversations that felt more like scripted dialogues than genuine discussions. Spotify executives grew increasingly frustrated as the show failed to deliver the cultural impact they'd paid for. After just 12 episodes, the deal quietly dissolved. Meghan walked away citing creative differences, but industry sources tell a different story. The translation was simple. Spotify wanted content that connected with audiences, while Meghan wanted complete control over a product that centered entirely on her perspective. The streaming giant had invested millions in a voice, but all they got was an echo chamber. When the Simpsons writers crafted their Meghan-inspired character, they didn't need to exaggerate or create fictional flaws. They simply animated the patterns that had already destroyed multiple projects. The cartoon cooking show, the self-centered conversations, the constant self-promotion, it was all there in living color, and it was devastatingly accurate. Sources close to Meghan reveal she was absolutely furious behind closed doors. She reportedly called the episode sexist and disrespectful, with her team making quiet complaints that the show was unfairly targeting a woman of color who was simply trying to uplift others. Her legal team has reportedly begun exploring whether the parody crossed the line from satire into defamation, though legal experts suggest such a case would be nearly impossible to win. But the backlash to her backlash revealed something more damaging than any cartoon ever could. Even prominent feminists weren't buying her victim narrative this time, with one columnist writing bluntly, "Feminism isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card for bad content." The shield that had protected Meghan from criticism for years was finally cracking. The real damage wasn't happening on social media or in think pieces. It was happening in the boardrooms and executive suites where entertainment careers are made and destroyed. Hollywood insiders reveal a troubling pattern. Executives who once scrambled to sign Meghan are now dodging her calls entirely. One Netflix producer allegedly told a reporter, "She's uncoachable. It's her way or no way, and when it flops, she plays the victim." Another industry insider described working with Meghan as walking through a PR minefield, where casual suggestions could be twisted into microaggressions and creative feedback became grounds for accusations of bias. The whispers have become a roar. Studio executives now pass on her projects before they're even fully pitched, with one reportedly saying, "Every idea ends with Meghan on a pedestal, and that's not storytelling, that's branding." In an industry that runs on relationships and reputation, Meghan has managed to become the person no one wants to work with, despite her global platform and star power. But perhaps the most devastating blow isn't coming from Hollywood, it's coming from the audience that once hung on her every word. Recent polling by YouGov shows Meghan's favorability has plummeted below 25% in the UK, with similar declines across moderate American audiences who once saw her as a refreshing change to royal tradition. The numbers tell a story that's worse than hatred, they reveal indifference. People aren't angry at Meghan anymore, they're simply bored. Her stories feel manufactured, her emotions rehearsed, her brand stretched too thin across too many platforms. Every new venture feels like another attempt to make herself the center of the conversation, and audiences have collectively decided to tune out. One marketing expert put it perfectly, "If your entire identity is built on being misunderstood, you need people to keep misunderstanding you." But eventually, people stop caring enough to argue. That's exactly where Meghan finds herself now, not in a passionate debate about her worth, but in a silence that's far more damaging than any criticism. Every single project Meghan has launched follows the exact same blueprint, and The Simpsons capture this perfectly in their animated parody. Whether it was a documentary, a podcast, or a cooking show, the structure never changed. Meghan front and center, with a carefully selected cast of supporting characters whose only job was to validate her narrative. There was never any growth, conflict, or genuine character development, just endless branding exercises wrapped in empowerment slogans. Her content wasn't designed to entertain or inform. It was engineered to reinforce a specific image of Meghan as perpetual victim and triumphant survivor. Audiences recognized this pattern long before The Simpsons pointed it out, which is why the cartoon landed with such devastating accuracy. The entertainment industry runs on story, but Meghan kept handing them brochures. Every pitch, every project, Every interview became another opportunity to cement the same narrative about her struggles and her strength, without any evolution or surprise. It wasn't entertainment, it was a feedback loop that audiences grew tired of watching. The collapse of public support hasn't happened overnight. It's been a slow, steady erosion that polling data now confirms with brutal clarity. In the UK, where Meghan once commanded significant attention and sympathy, her approval rating sits in the basement. In the United States, even the liberal media outlets that once championed her cause are pulling back their support. One entertainment editor recently put it bluntly, she's overexposed and under-delivering. The magic that once made Meghan Markle a compelling figure has evaporated, replaced by a calculated performance that feels hollow and desperate. Late-night hosts who once feared the backlash of mocking her now drop punchlines with ease, sensing that the public appetite for defending her has completely disappeared. The shift isn't just in polling numbers, it's in the cultural conversation itself. Think pieces that once celebrated her courage now question her credibility. News coverage that once focused on her achievements now leads with her failures. The narrative has flipped so completely that even her supporters are going quiet, unwilling to stake their own reputations on defending someone who seems incapable of delivering on her promises. Behind the scenes, streaming platforms are quietly distancing themselves from Sussex-related content entirely. The numbers don't lie. People might click out of curiosity, but they rarely finish what they start. There's no emotional payoff, no surprise, no reason to recommend the content to friends. Just more glossy narratives and softly lit interviews that feel more like therapy sessions than entertainment. Netflix executives are reportedly frustrated with the return on their investment, with insider sources suggesting the platform is actively looking for ways to fulfill contractual obligations while minimizing future commitments. Spotify's early exit from their podcast deal has become a cautionary tale for other platforms considering Meghan-centered content. The problem isn't just poor performance metrics, it's the predictability factor that makes Meghan's content unmarketable to demographics that streaming services desperately need to reach. Young audiences scroll past her projects, older viewers find them preachy, and middle ground audiences have simply lost interest. In an industry where attention is currency, Meghan has become bankrupt. The Simpsons didn't just create a cartoon, they held up a mirror to a media empire built on sand. While Meghan's legal team explores their options, and her PR machine goes into overdrive, the real verdict has already been delivered by the audience that matters most. They've moved on, and in Hollywood, there's no recovering from irrelevance. The question isn't whether Meghan can bounce back from this animated assault, it's whether anyone will still be watching when she tries.